So let's take a look at a couple of those. Maple syrup or maple sugar syrup. And of course, most of the maple syrup that you buy in the store isn't even maple syrup. It used to be it was 100% maple syrup, and now it can say maple syrup with as little as 10 or 15% maple syrup in it, and the rest is just a whole bunch of garbage. But if it was really 100% maple syrup, they have to boil it for hours and hours and hours and hours to evaporate off enough of the water to concentrate the sugar to something called a Brix level, B-R-I-X, to get the sweetness up high enough that they're allowed to call it, pure maple syrup and sell it as that. And so it is quite processed. It's been boiled for many, many, many hours, and it's very, very concentrated sweetener. You mentioned honey. Honey may be a little bit more natural. If the label says unheated and unfiltered, if you have both of those on there, not uncooked. Uncooked is sort of a way the government allows them to lie. But if it says unheated and unfiltered, then we're talking about a honey that really is as close as possible to the way that it comes out of the hive. So at least it has some of the parts that are in honey. So it's got bee propolis and royal jelly and pollen. And if you're not allergic, those could be good for you. But it's still basically pure sugar. So although some people's bodies can handle it, most people really would be better off with less of those. Then you've got the agave nectar or agave syrup, which is from the agave cactus. That's been shown apparently to transfer or to convert into blood sugar a little bit more slowly than some of the others. And so it may be a less harmful sugar. There's more and more research we're doing on these. But the idea is, just because we call something natural and think of it as, oh, well, that's just maple syrup or that's just honey, that really doesn't make it that much better for us. We still need to bring the amount down because it's overconsumption, which I would say today is just about everybody, overconsumption of all of these sweeteners, which is vastly escalating the amount of diabetes, hypoglycemia, heart disease, cancer, and probably a whole bunch of other things because we refer to sugars as anti-nutrients. An anti-nutrient being something that provides none of its own nutrients and yet requires nutrients from the body in order for us to metabolize it and use it.
Well, what about fruit juice concentrates?
Fruit juice concentrates are, let's see, to be nice to them, fruit juice concentrates would be what the industry is using most to lie to the public. So the public believes that if something says naturally, unless you've heard this video, that if something says natural, it's healthier for you. The public believes that if they look at the ingredient label and instead of saying fructose or sucrose on the label or just sugar, if instead it says concentrated pear juice extract, concentrated grape juice extract, that, oh, well, that's a natural sugar, that's fine. It's not. Because they have to boil it to death. They have to do a whole bunch of processing to make it sweet enough that they can use it as a sweetening agent. By the time they're finished, if you were to look at the thick molten gunk that they're putting in, that they're calling a fruit juice concentrate, you might as well just use the other sugars. It really isn't helping you any.
Okay. It doesn't sound very appetizing either. Since we just covered fruit juice concentrates, how about we cover fruit and fruit juices?
Okay. And how about we cover Tomka, or Tomka covers us? Because Tomka always loves to have lots of attention. Let's do fruit juices first. We have been led to believe, rather erroneously and incorrectly, that fruit juices are very, very good for us. I mean, absolutely. How could they not be? They're natural. Well, there's that word again. In essence, the things that are bad about soda, the reason that Coke and Pepsi and A&W root beer, and I don't want to leave any of them out because none of them are worse than any other, 7-Up, whatever. The reason that they're all bad for us is part of it is some of the chemicals that are in there, but a fair amount is also that they're loaded with sugar. And a 12-ounce can of most brands of soda pop will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 14 teaspoons of sugar. What the public is not being told is that a similar 12-ounce glass of, let's say, fresh squeezed orange juice or fresh pressed apple juice will have the same 10 to 14 teaspoons of sugar in it. And in fact, it is the sugar in there that is the most damaging, although there are other things in the soda that are also bad. So fruit juice really isn't a good substance for us to be drinking. Is it better than soda? Well, I'd have to say it's better than soda, especially if you squeeze it or press it yourself and didn't get it out of a container where it's been pasteurized or homogenized. But in general, sugar really is the enemy. And when somebody is trying to be good to their kids and giving them a glass of, let's say, apple juice instead of a glass of soda pop or a cola, they're really not they're not making a big benefit. They're really not doing that much. When we get to the actual fruit, now we definitely have something different. If you're eating whole, raw, unprocessed, preferably organic, we'll talk about that later, fruit, then you do have a lot of nutrients in it. But depending on the particular fruit, you also have a lot of sugar. So some fruit have a lot more nutrients and a lot less sugar. Those are what I refer to as the much healthier fruit. So most of the berries, for example, blueberries, elderberries, raspberries, blackberries, not strawberries. Strawberries have been so hybridized, and also it's the only berry that grows on the ground, so it gets more heavily sprayed, often has a lot more sugar in it. So I sort of push the strawberries out, but all the other berries are some of the healthiest fruit. Somebody wants to have them every day, I have no problem with it. But most other fruits, and apple. Apple is another good fruit. That old adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. But apple has a lot of apple pectin in it, which has been shown to have some anti-cancer properties. The body takes a while to pull the sugar out of the apple. Whereas if you instead were to talk about, let's say, a melon, like a piece of watermelon or cantaloupe, it doesn't take your body long to pull the sugar out of it. And you can think about that. If you take a watermelon, you can just squeeze it and get the sugar water out of it. You take an apple, it's a much harder fruit. So there's a lot more things that the body has to break down before it gets the sugar out. So let's put it into a little nutshell. All the berries except strawberries, I don't usually limit them as long as somebody's not allergic. If somebody wants to have blueberries every morning for breakfast, that's fine, or for a dessert. Preferably not by themselves. I'd rather people have the berries, let's say, as a dessert, because that way all of the proteins and fats that you had in a healthy meal will slow down the conversion of sugar. Whereas if somebody just decides to have a bad fruit, like and I don't really want to say bad, that's a bad way to put it, but if somebody wants to have a half a cantaloupe or a big wedge of watermelon or something like that as a snack, it will turn into sugar in your body way faster than if it's had with other things. So fruit in and of itself, not a bad idea. Many people that never eat fruit would benefit by eating an apple a day or a bowl of some good berries a day. But people that love fruit and are listening to our government and physicians saying, oh my goodness, we need to eat 5 or 6 or 7 portions of fruit a day, that's not a good idea. That's too much. And if you have something that is specifically related to blood sugar metabolism, such as hypoglycemia, cancer, diabetes, or heart disease, I wouldn't want more than 1 piece of fruit a day, and let's make it one of the healthier ones.